big warm virtual welcome for our friend, Dr. Eran Magen. Hi, Eran.
Hi, Charlene. Thank you very much. I think there might be more of us than you here. So yeah, like Charlene was saying, if you're willing to turn on your cameras, that's great because it doesn't just feel like, talking into the void. I will be talking for the next, 10, 15 minutes. I'm going to try to keep it pretty short so that later we can have a discussion. I wonder, usually we have more people, and I wonder if it's the topic or the timing. If it's the topic, that's really sad. And if it's the timing, that's great because maybe people are busy. But I will get started. Okay. My email is at the bottom there. I'll put it later in the chat. If anybody has questions, sometimes parents email me later and we either discuss by email or we set up a time to meet and talk. Either of those is great if you want to do it. The URL at the bottom shows where you can get the slides if you want them, if you find it helpful to have them. And again, we'll put it all in the chat later on. I want to start off by saying something that we must always remember, which is that you're probably doing a great job already. And especially by virtue of just spending time today thinking about how to be better parents. And in this case, how to take better care of yourselves so you can be better parents. Good work. Being parents is hard and it's demanding and it can be confusing and it's challenging and good for you for making time to learn more about how to do this. I also want to emphasize, like with every topic, all the things that I'll be telling you here are things that I aspire to do, but I don't do them perfectly. I'm not pretending to be a perfect parent or a perfect person. And if I were trying to pretend that, I doubt you would buy that. But just to be clear, right, this is all what we're aiming to do, what I think could be helpful to do. And I try to do it as much as I can, but not all the time. Okay, having said all this, let's jump in. So why even talk about self-care? I really think about self-care in terms of energy management and thinking about parenting, how to make parenting a sustainable practice, right? And parenting takes energy. And when we have less energy, I can talk about myself, right? I know that when I have less energy, I'm just enjoying life less. I know that I'm acting more impulsively and less thoughtfully. I'm usually less pleasant when I'm more tired. Unless I'm very tired and then I'm sleeping, and I'm told I'm very sweet when I'm sleeping. But if I'm awake and I'm very tired, that's no good for anybody. And I just don't feel like doing stuff, right? I just don't have the energy. And all of these lead me to, among other things, be less of the good parent I'd want to be, right? Less engaged with my kid and less thoughtful about how I interact with him. And of course, the opposite is true. With more energy, right? I can enjoy myself and my child more. I can be more thoughtful and more planful and intentional in my interactions. I can be more pleasant and more positive in general and just be up for doing more stuff and have the energy to plan to do interesting things and so on. So today, the main thing I'd like to suggest that we all focus on is thinking what drains your battery? What are the kind of things that leave you with less energy, and what charges your battery? And another thing to consider is, are there ways to make our batteries bigger so we can hold more charge, right? So instead of just having a 2-hour charge in us maximum, can we make our battery last for 3 hours, 4 hours? How do we make the battery bigger? And the three approaches that I would suggest thinking about are these ideas of escape, recharge, and growth activities. Escape activities are activities that stop whatever distress we're experiencing in the moment, but don't really make things better. They just stop the badness we're feeling. In physical terms, this would be a painkiller, right? It doesn't solve the problem, but it helps us kind of move past it and continue. And sometimes that's a great thing. Sometimes it's just important that we not feel the pain or discomfort so we can do whatever it is that we need to do. Sometimes it allows us to do more work, like if we need to take some pain medication while we're doing physical therapy for something that's not working quite well, right? But we need to do the physical therapy for it to improve. Just the painkiller alone will not improve the challenge that we're dealing with, but it makes it tolerable, right? And so in human terms, for me, an escape might be something like watching YouTube videos, watching Netflix, reading a book, which increasingly I realize is more of an escape than anything else. But for some people, it's cooking or eating or cleaning. Bless your hearts, if you are a stress cleaner, I would like you to be my friend and to be occasionally stressed and visiting. I do not stress clean. I wish I did. But all of these are activities that take our mind away from the current stress, give us a break. But when we come back from it, really the situation is exactly as it was. And very often our reaction to the situation is exactly the way it was before. It's sort of a pause on stress and then resume stress. It doesn't really resolve the stress. And then there are recharge activities. Recharge activities are activities that usually they'll take our mind off of whatever it is that's going on that's challenging or upsetting. But when we're done with the activity, they leave us with more energy. We actually feel better once it stops. Again, these are really different things for different people. So maybe playing music does that to you, right? You can take your mind off whatever's happening and you're left feeling invigorated or recharged. Maybe meeting with a friend, maybe taking a walk, maybe taking a bath. Maybe, so for me, a particular type of video is a recharge, it turns out, which is if I watch something that is very funny. So I learned that when I'm down enough, I'll watch some sort of stand-up usually. And by the end of it, like the world feels like a better place. It's not just that I paused my upset for a moment. Unlike other types of videos that can be very engrossing, but when I'm done with them, I feel exactly as I did before. Playing games with other people, sports or board games or whatever it is, right? So there are many different things that can be recharging activities. They're different for every person, but the hallmark is that when we're done doing them, we feel better than we did before. We actually charged our battery. We have more energy available. And the last type of activity that relates to self-care that I'm talking about here is growth activity. And growth activities improve our ability to deal with the world. And you might say that they make our battery bigger. So these could be things like preparing well so that we're not overly drained later. Try to give you a specific concrete example. Let's say, it can be as small as buying the right stuff at the supermarket, so you're not eating food that leaves you feeling that. But it can also be something like if you're constantly stressed about money, doing work around that, right? Maybe taking a financial planning, financial literacy class and improving your financial literacy. Maybe it's working on your resume and applying for a different job, right? Really working on the roots of the stressor so that when they're eliminated, you have less stress in your life and more things that you feel good about. Maybe it's going to a parenting class. If there are specific stressors that keep coming up with your kids, right? You're investing time in it in order to learn to do it better so that it's less stressful. Maybe it's planning the garden that next year you're going to be using, right? And the planning is not fun, but you love gardening, right? And so maybe it's exercising regularly because you know that you feel better and you know that you can tolerate more upset in your life. Maybe it's establishing excellent sleep routines, right? That leave you feeling more rested, better rested and more able to handle the world. So growth activities by and large are not fun in and of themselves. Typically, they might be, but their hallmark is not that they're fun. They don't necessarily reduce the stress immediately or change how you feel or even give you energy right away. They're more like longer term investments in days or weeks or months that end up with you being able to better handle the world, right? So whereas escape and recharge are about your immediate experience, growth activities are about planning long-term and think about how do we do this better. Another way to arrange these is to think about them in terms of how much effort do they take, and then how much improvement do they give you. So escape activities take very little effort, and that's why they're so amazing. right? So for a lot of people, like going on Facebook is an escape activity, right? You're just like, you're not happy with whatever's going on and you just need to distract yourself and you just go poop and you're like there. It takes half a finger movement and you're there. And it works, right? You've escaped from your immediate reality. But once you stop, you end up right back in your reality. So it gives you a break and it takes almost no effort. Recharge activities typically take more effort, right? If you want to hang out with a friend because that makes you feel better, you need to make it happen. It's not as simple as touching your phone. You need to actually work at it. Maybe you need to go somewhere, or maybe you need to plan an activity or something like that, right? If you like to play music, that takes more work than watching a video. So more effort, but generally speaking, leave you better off than where you started. And growth activities typically take a bunch of effort. It doesn't need to be enormously effortful, but typically take a bunch of effort. They give you the most improvement, but in the long term. Again, they improve your capacity to deal with stress. But they take effort. And so when I talk about realistic self-care for parents, or I mean, really for anybody, but especially for parents, the question then is how to use the right mix of these activities, right? Because what I am not saying that we should only be doing growth activities all the time because we're going to be amazing. And we're going to do a mix of those probably, right? And given that growth activities take a lot of energy to do, you can't do them when you don't have energy, right? So you need to do some recharge in order to do that. And even recharge activities can take a bunch of effort. So in order to get there, you might need to do some escape activities just to disconnect from the ongoing stress, right? Some essentially painkillers, and then get yourself to a point where you can do a recharge activity. So it's almost like a ladder, right? If you have zero energy, if you're constantly overwhelmed and just crushed by what's happening in life and family, then you definitely do need to escape sometimes, right? But the goal of the escape, I would suggest, is to build enough energy to be able to start incorporating recharge activities into your routine. I'll get later soon to this point about routine, but one of the most important things is to schedule things that give you energy into your schedule, put them into your schedule, put them into your calendar so you know when they're happening, right? Maybe you have a standing date to meet with a friend and play the board game that you like. Maybe you have a standing date with another friend to go on a hike. Whatever it is, maybe you like playing basketball, and so you know that Wednesday nights is when you go play at the local community center, whatever it is. Having it in your calendar makes it much more likely to happen. So here's an activity that you could be doing. I don't know how many of you have a piece of paper in front of you, but conceptually also this is helpful to think about, which is what are the kinds of activities that give you that feel like they might be escape or recharge or growth activities, something that'll help you manage your energy. And then how much effort does each of these activity require? So you might say Facebook. How much effort? Little. Is it an escape? Yes. Do I feel better when I'm done with it? Is it a recharge? No. Well, usually no. There's some content that makes me feel better. Okay, maybe we'll split it into two lines. So if it's just general scrolling, it's only escape, it's not recharge, it's not growth. Okay, how about Facebook and I look at the inspirational page from that person that I find really amazing. Okay, effort, very little. Escape, yes. Recharge, yes. Growth, no. Great, okay, so that's a better escape, right? Because it also has a recharge element to it. What's another thing that I could be doing? Well, I do love playing basketball. Okay, so how much effort is it? Moderate effort. I need to make sure that dinner is ready and waiting there and I can just head out the door. Is it an escape? Absolutely. I love it. I don't think about anything else when I do it. Is it recharge? Yes. I feel better for 2 whole days after I do basketball. Great. Is it growth? Well, maybe a little. It actually keeps me in shape. And when I'm in better shape, I feel better. And it helps me sleep better at night, right? And just writing out or even thinking through different activities that you can do and maybe that you do already and thinking, what are the benefits that they provide you with? And essentially trying to pick smart escapes that also have some element of recharge in them, right? And maybe picking smart recharge that also has an element of growth in it. And maybe if you find that your growth column is kind of skinny, then maybe thinking about a thing that you could add, right? What is a stressor in life right now? And what are ways to address that? And it might be as simple, but not easy. But it might be as simple as saying, I'm going to schedule a half hour in my calendar every week to think about this thing and how to address it, right? If my concern is that, I think the water where I live is really dangerous and it's causing me a lot of stress. Like, what can I do about this? I can't solve this right now, but let's schedule a time on Friday to think about this. Or if you're worried that your kid has, your kid's friends feel really unwholesome to you, right? And it bothers you, you're not sure what to do about it. Like, schedule a time to think about it and what are the things that can be done. So that, or if your friends feel like, if you have a clash in relationship with a friend of yours, right? Likewise, like, these are all things that need to be solved. And if you don't know what the growth activity is, then maybe schedule a time to think about what the growth activity could be, what the solution could be. And that in itself is a growth activity, right? You're investing in having a better life. But my main point in this is that in this particular slide is that many activities, many things we do can meet multiple needs. They can be an escape and a recharge and a growth, or an escape and a recharge, something like that. And I do think that escapes have their place. They're absolutely necessary, and I think a normal part of life. And I would still recommend aiming for escapes that also leave you feeling better than before, right? So escapes that give you a little bit of a recharge. Okay, I think final slide. It's kind of a summary / tips. One is, think about energy as a ladder, right? If you're really just overwhelmed and exhausted and you just can't barely lift your head and do more than the minimum that life is pushing you to do, think about building up your energy, right? So you don't start by doing the really hard stuff that requires a lot of commitments that's not realistic and not reasonable. And not likely to happen. Start with the really easy stuff, the really low-hanging fruit, right? The escapes that give you maybe a little bit of a recharge. And if you can, plan it into your schedule if you're able to. Certainly for recharge activities, if you have any kind of ability to do it, I strongly recommend figuring out your recharge activities and then scheduling them, even if it's once a month. Ideally, I would say a couple of times a week, right? On the schedule, so that you don't schedule anything else to happen during that time. Just figure out what works. And again, sometimes life is going to intervene because life happens all the time. But the more you can schedule it, the more likely it is to happen. And then the last and maybe counter scheduling point is take pleasure where you can, and don't feel guilty about taking pleasure. I would say, right? Again, life can get really hard sometimes. Life can get very, very challenging. And when this happens and you're doing your own form of escape, just do your own form of escape. Don't spend even more energy feeling bad or guilty about it. Like, sometimes we need to do that. That's okay, right? And so if you know of an easy way to feel better, as long as you're not hurting anyone else, if you know of a simple way that's accessible to you to feel better, right? Take it where you can find it, because your energy matters a lot. Your ability to be the parent you want to be depends on how much energy you have available to you, right? Managing your energy is absolutely a part of parenting, right? It's not just something you do for yourself, separate from anybody else. The better you manage your energy, the better you can be when showing up with other people. Okay, that's that. I'll stop the screen share in a second, and I'll put my email address and the URL for the slides for those of you that want them, in case you actually want to do the worksheet.